Hello, my name is Doug Leisure. I wanted to record this video to show you the features that we've added in the 2025 version where we are providing drop-down lists to help you out when you're doing your donations. So that would be on the Entry tab. And then also when you're entering your expenses, so that would be on the Expenses tab. Before we dive um, into the little example of that, let's just start by saying that I have provided you, along with the Excel file, a very lengthy, very robust and detailed user guide. It's 140 pages filled with a lot of very good information. And in fact, the things that I'm going to be talking about related to the drop-down list you'll find in the documentation. So if we just scroll down through the table of contents, there is a portion there related to the drop-down list for your entry and expenses tab. So let's just dive down there. Okay, so a portion of the user guide related to the drop-down list. And again, what I'm going to show you are the things that are discussed here in the user guide. So let's get rid of that or just minimize that for a second. So when I send you the donation software, it will come with the drop-down lists already created on the donor tab and over on the entry tab as well. Before we dive into that, let's just take a second and talk about drop-down lists generically. What are they? How do they work? So if we come over to the parameters, I have been using the drop-down list methodology, that concept, in many different places in the software already. So let's just talk about what that is. So a drop-down list is this kind of a thing. So if we come down here in our parameters and we're asking the question, do you want to print the donation details, yes or no? So when I click on the yellow cell here where we have the parameter that you want to set to yes or no, when we click on it, you'll see that it has a little down arrow here. If I click on the down arrow, then I'm seeing a selection of what my choices are, what I can answer. I can either answer yes or no. There are some other things in the software where a list is not provided. You must type it in, and when you select on those items, there is no down arrow here to the right of it. What's really interesting is if you select here, let's say the language. So in this case, we can use the software in English, in Spanish, or in both English and Spanish. If you select Spanish as your language, then your drop-down list changes so that it displays yes or no, in this case, in the Spanish language. Now that's not a normal functionality of Excel and their drop-down list. It's just something extra that I've added to make it easier for you using the software. But that's what the drop-down list is. And again, you'll notice that any cell that has a drop-down list, when you select the cell, you'll see this little down arrow here to the side. And when you click on it, you get your list of choices. Okay, one other really small thing just as we're generically talking about drop-down lists, let's take a look at another place where I use it over on the donor list. Okay, so on the donor list, you'll see on the donor list then that we have drop downs here. So the question is, for this particular donor, do I want to print a receipt, yes or no? Now the drop down list actually has the yes, I want to print a receipt, which would be a paper receipt. No, don't print anything for this person. But we also have the option to create a PDF file of this donor's year-end receipt, or an option to automatically email a file to them. And actually it creates a PDF and it sends it to them through your email system. That's what that option would be. Okay, the reason I'm pointing this out is on the donor list, what's different about this one is if you add a new person, let's add another donor in here. How about Dylan Snow? And if you have any hope of using or any desire to use the email option, then you would want to put in an email address for that person. It's the only way to use the email option is if you've provided an email address. Hopefully that makes sense to you. But let's go ahead and put in Dylan's email address. And what you'll see as I've added this person, and you'll do this because you're constantly adding donors over time, the drop-down list is available up above, but for the new person it's not available. Excel just doesn't know to automatically copy that down, so you have to do that manually. And that's why I wanted to just mention this particular drop-down list. But it's pretty easy to do. You go to one of the previous donors where we do have the drop-down list, and you can just simply copy that and come down to the new person and paste that in. And so it's copying the selection, the word yes, but it's also copying the drop-down option. Okay, so let me undo that and then show you a second way to do that. And this should be true in the new, or actually that should be just about every version of Excel sitting out there right now, is that there is another way to do it where you select the donor just above the one you're doing, and when you click once on the option here, the drop down option, you'll see down here in the bottom right there's a square green dot. If you put your mouse pointer up over top of that, now look, as I see it, it's this kind of a plus sign, right? As I move closer to it and get right over top of it, it turns into more of a solid plus sign. And what that means is you can left click and drag down, and what it's doing is it's copying that particular cell contents, including the drop down list. It's copying it down, so you can take it and drag down to multiple rows, and it'll copy that down. So every one of these rows now will have the drop down list available to it. So it's just using, again, that little square dot right there, green square dot there in the bottom right hand corner. Put your mouse over top of that and drag down. So that's an easy way to do that. So just, again, this is more of a generic drop down list concept, but I just wanted you to be aware of how that works specifically on the donor list. Okay, now let's jump back to what we really want to talk about, which will be the drop down list related to entering your donations. Okay, so when the software is delivered to you, you will have drop down lists available in the name of the special column, right? So when we're doing a donation and we have a special offering we're doing, the idea is that you'll have these drop downs available to look up and see what has previously been used as a name of one of your special offerings. Now, when you first get this, you have not done anything in the past. And what I mean by that is the place where we store and record all of your historical donations. It's empty in this column where we've put names of previous specials. So all that means is that the drop down list, when you first get it, there's nothing in there. There's nothing to select from because you haven't done anything before. So what's interesting about this particular drop down list, unlike the other ones I showed you where you could only select from the items that appeared there, this particular drop down list was designed so that if the item you want is not there, you can just make it up for that particular week's donation. So let's say this is our first time using it and we're doing a special offering and somebody donated to for our Vacation Bible School. So you can just simply type it in. This is our first time doing a special for Vacation Bible School, so I just simply type it in. And then when I'm done with this week's donation, when we go to our donation software, we say entry is complete. As it completes the process of doing this week's donation, it will move the history over, and this item will be moved over to our historical records. And that means next week and the weeks beyond, when I click the down arrow, Vacation Bible School will be one of the options available to us. So on the entry tab, it's a drop-down list, but it comes from things that have been previously saved. Okay, let's take a look at the other use of the drop-down list, and that would be on the expenses tab. And before we go there, I just wanted to start by saying, when I send the software to you, there will be just a few things available. Kind of think of it more of examples. So one of the drop downs we have on the expense recording portion of it, we have a drop down for our accounts. So checking, bank accounts, credit card accounts, those kinds of things. Where does this come from? Well, this list comes from our parameters. If we scroll down to the bottom, there is a place here where we define how many bank or credit card accounts are we tracking and what are the names of them. So that particular list comes right from here. So as you modify and adjust this portion where we define our bank and credit card accounts, that's what will be used in that particular drop down. Okay, next we have, let's go to the easy one. Way at the end we have the drop down list, and it's really more of a specific yes or no kind of a thing. But this is the one where as you're entering your payments or deposits, you have the option to try to balance your balances as we're tracking them, not only to what we've entered in this expense register, but also to then compare it to what was sent to us by the bank or credit card. So the statement we get from them. So the thing that often happens is we have more items that we've put on our expense registry than are appearing on our statements. That is, we've entered it, but the bank or the credit card company doesn't know about it yet. So we're actually ahead of them. So on their statement, it's not there, it's missing. So you have the option to just say, yes, this particular transaction is missing on the statement, even though it's in my expense registry. And all that does is to help us out then when we're doing our balances, right? We enter our opening balance. We can calculate the current balance because it's just adding the deposits and subtracting off the payments, and that gives us a current balance. However, if it's missing, then we need to actually do some slightly different math and remove those items that are missing so that we can actually balance so we can actually match this balance to the statement that was sent to us from the bank or the credit card company. And so that's the idea of that missing. That's what that drop down is for. Okay, let's go back and do the final two things that we are including. So we have a drop down list then for our category and our subcategory. So the idea is like if I'm doing a payment for my employees, then I would choose employee as a category. The subcategory then would be the pastor's salary as an example. But if I choose utilities, then I'm going to get a different list here on the subcategory drop down. So here my choice is electricity. Okay, let's take a quick look at where these are coming from, because this is the important part where you will need to adjust or modify this. Okay, let's go back. So as the software is sent to you, there is a drop-down tab, and on this tab is where we build the drop-down lists for the entry tab and then for the category and subcategory. Those are the things that are here. The entry tab, that list of items, pulling it out of the historical records. Um, it'll build a list then of all of those available drop-down items. You don't have to do anything with it. That's just where those are going to show up. The part that you'll want to deal with and probably very likely modify will be over here. These items, actually more, sorry, specifically these items. So by default, I will give you some samples: employees, utilities, office supply, and underneath each one is just a sample: pastor salary, electricity, paper. You are going to want to extend these if necessary. So we add our gas, our water, our sewage, whatever the different utilities are. Or you can just simply type over top of these and make up your own category and subcategory list. So I just wanted to show you, when I send the file to you, the Excel file, this is what will be there. Now the transfer is coming from our list of accounts. So this is just using our list over on the parameters of our accounts that are available, and that's what we have then for doing transfers between accounts. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at modifying this, but I sure don't want to. I don't want to modify the blank Excel file that I send out to people. So let's just shut that one down. I have one that I use for doing these demonstrations and videos. So let's just play with that one. Okay, so this is one that I've been using so far and playing with it. So here, let's take a look at, as I mentioned, we have lots of history now in this sample that I've been working on. Lots of history, lots of different items here. And in fact, this particular sample that I'm doing, we have not only our special donations, but we also have our in-kind or non-cash type donations. So our list over here is actually going to be a mixture of special offerings we've done in the past and also in-kind donations that we have done. And as I mentioned, those items show up here in column A, and that's what is then used for our drop down. So if we go back to the entry, as you're doing your donations and you need a special or an in-kind, you can look and see if that item is there from if we've used it in previous weeks, and select it right off the list. If it's not there, as I said before, you can just choose to type your new special offering or in-kind donation item if it's not there. Okay. So real quick, that was the entry drop down for the entry. Let's take a look more specifically then at the drop down for the expenses part, and specifically this is for the category and the subcategories. Okay, so we have the three items that are in the software, and when it sends it, when it's given to you. And you can see here I've added, in addition to the pastor salary, I just went down to the next row, the next cell below that, and just typed in secretary salary. So now we have, when we choose employees, we have two drop-down items for the subcategory, right? It's shipped with telephone, and I added gas, rent, electricity, water by just typing those in here. Office supply and paper were there. So let's first look at what if I have lots and lots of subcategories and I start to run out of room? Because notice how these have the border around these cells, and I do that specifically so you can start to see if you're running out of room and you need to insert additional rows. So what you want to do is you want to go somewhere in the middle of all of the cells that are highlighted with this border around it, because we want to insert in the middle of these cells, not below it, right? Not below it, but in the middle of the existing cells that are already highlighted with the border around it. So pick a spot anywhere here, right click and do an insert, and that inserts a blank row, and then you'll notice the borders are included as it inserted that row. It was included as part of the definition of what is the subcategories, and it highlighted it in with a border around it automatically. So it's included as long as you insert above the last row there. Okay, so if you start running out, you need additional subcategories more than the space I've given you, then just insert one or more rows, and then you'll have room for adding additional ones. What about if I need a new category and subcategory items underneath of it? So in our example, we have an example there already where we were doing Christian education, and underneath of that would be Sunday school. That would be a new item. So as I'm doing my expense entry, it's like, oh, I haven't done that before, but I need a new item, Christian education, and at least one subcategory item, Sunday school. So what you'll want to do is just simply come back here to the drop down tab, and when you insert, we're going to insert a new column. That's how we define a new category and subcategories. The only thing I'm going to ask you to do is make sure you do that particular insert either to the right of the C, the D, or to the left of the transfer category. So within Excel, when you do an insert, I highlight this, it actually inserts to the left of it. So I'm going to choose the transfer, I'm going to do an insert, and what it does is it pushes the transfer over to the right, and it inserted a blank one there. The blank one that it inserted is where I'm going to add my new category. So that's the Christian education, and then the subcategory will be Sunday school. Okay, and if you want to, you can make that a little bit wider so you can see it. Oh, I did have a typo there, sorry. Let's fix that up. Okay. All right, so I inserted a blank column, added my category and subcategories, right, if it's more than one. And now when we come back to our expenses tab, on our drop down we have the option for Christian education, and the subcategory there would be Sunday school. All right. Okay, so that is how you would add additional categories on the drop down list by inserting a new column and then typing in your category underneath of that your subcategories. And again, I've given you room for quite a few. If you start to run out and need more subcategories, remember to insert, but insert above the last row, and that'll give you room for additional subcategories. Okay, now that's the majority of everything I wanted to cover. I do want to talk about this would be kind of the the extra information related to these drop-down lists. And to talk about that, let's take a second and jump back into the user guide. So the methodology that I'm using for the entry tab, the methodology I'm using for the category and subcategory, the technique I'm using is something, it's using some pretty old cell formulas and techniques within Microsoft Excel. And I did that specifically because I'm not sure what versions all of you are using out there. I know a lot of you are on older versions, so I used techniques that work in older versions. Now, if you happen to be using a newer version of Excel, and that would be like Office 365 or Excel 2016 and beyond, then you have the opportunity to use newer and I would say better, smarter cell formulas. And so I do cover that here in my user guide. Okay, so the idea of creating better drop downs. So let's talk about, well, first of all, how would I know if that's even a possibility for me? Well, if you could look and see, which version of Office you have, of Microsoft Excel you have. If you're not sure how to do that, I'll give you a little trick. One of the things we can do is we could just try using one of these new cell formulas. So I'm just going to copy this one, and as I state here in the user guide, just go over to your donors tab, find some place that's empty, and type in that particular cell formula. Okay, and when you type in that cell formula and hit the enter key, it'll go do something. You don't really care about what it did. That's not the issue. The issue is whether or not it did something, or it gave you basically a message from Excel saying, sorry, I don't know what this new function is. I don't recognize it. And I'll just show you what that would look like by creating a function that doesn't exist even in my version. So I just mistyped that. But here's, if your version doesn't support these new things, you'll know because it'll come back with this pound name question mark, meaning hey, I have no idea what that function is you're trying to use. So that would be an easy way to determine that this version of Excel does not support the new functions. Okay, let's undo that, and here's what I just wanted to show you is the downside to the old cell formulas and methodologies. The downside, it really shows up on the drop down that we use for the donations, on the entry tab, where we're doing our special offerings or in-kind items. The idea is that it's building a list of all of the things that were entered previously in this column Z, which is the name of our specials and or in-kind donations. Okay, and whatever shows up here, that's what ends up being on your drop-down list. The reason I'm trying to tell you about this is, as I've worked with different churches over the many years, what I've noticed is a lot of churches will put things over here in this special, the name of the special column. They'll put things over here that have nothing to do with a special offering or an in-kind donation. I think what they really intended to do was to just put in some kind of a generic comment, and I've given you a column for that. But I've noticed in working with churches, many different churches, that they aren't using this column for their comments, but instead they're putting them over here. And that just simply means that item comes across as one of your choices in the drop down list, even if you had not really intended it to be done that way. So what I've done here in the documentation is to give you a much more robust type of a formula using the new functions that are available in the newer version. And what this will do is it'll create a much smarter drop down list. And so again, the documentation tells you how to actually, it gives you the cell formula that you need, tells you how to apply it, how to adjust the drop down. So all the steps are there. But basically the idea of the new one, if you wanted to use it, is that it has the extra intelligence to say if we do not have any dollar amounts associated with that particular the name, then it will ignore it. So if there are things sitting on your annual tab that somebody typed in, but it wasn't really a donation, just some kind of a generic comment. Right, somebody entered a comment, right, but not in the comment section, but it was added here in this name of special. What the new cell formula does is it's smart enough to say, wait a minute, you have a comment here, or you have an entry here in the name of special, but because there's no dollars associated with it, ignore it, and it would not show up on the list. So it's just a much smarter cell formula. So that's just an option for you if you want to read down through that. If you're on a newer version, consider going through the documentation and adding one of these newer cell formulas there for your drop down. It'll just give you a much better list. Okay, that's all I wanted to cover in this video, and I will continue to make additional videos related to the new 2025 version of the donation software. Thank you.